Welcome to this webinar focused on using Meetoo to improve your panel sessions through audience engagement and interaction. Before we get started, I'd just like to cover off a bit of housekeeping. We have set up a Meetoo meeting for this session, so if you have any questions, please submit them as we go and we will take time at the end to answer them. If for any reason we are unable to answer a question or if we've run out of time, we will follow up with responses in an email within the next day or two. So to kick off, my name is Sophie and joining me today is Dermott, who like myself works in the Meetoo Customer Success team. Between us, we have nearly 20 years experience in the audience engagement and event technology industry. So hopefully over the next 15 or 20 minutes, we can give you some ideas on how to use a tool like Meetoo in your panel sessions. So now that you know a bit about who we are, we would like to get a better understanding of who you are. To do this, we would like to ask you a few simple warm-up questions. So to get started, which of the below best describes the department you work in? Events team, HR, IT, marketing, operations, sales, or other? Please vote now. Fabulous. So the next question, which of the below best describes your organisation? Is it an events agency or production company, medcoms, professional services, financial services, retail, medical, healthcare, technology, or other? Please vote now. Fab. Okay, so moving on. What percentage of your meetings include panel sessions? 0 to 25%, 26 to 50%, 51 to 75%, or 76 to 100%? Please vote now. Great stuff, thanks for that. Okay, so have you previously used an app or keypad system during a panel session? Yes or no? Please vote now. Okay, fabulous. Okay, so it's great to see a real mix of results and hopefully we've made the content of this session general enough to be of interest to all of you. So thank you very much for responding to those. Asking those questions was not simply a way for us to capture some data on you. Having your participants respond to demographic type questions at the beginning of a meeting is a great way to let everybody in the audience see who else is attending with them. But they also act as a way to introduce the engagement technology in a way that is easy yet practical. If you ask a warm-up question like, what did you have for your breakfast? You're possibly setting the wrong tone for your meeting and devaluing the use of the technology. So today's agenda, we're going to be discussing why use Meetoo. We're going to look at a Meetoo Toolkit for your panel session. We'll be using Meetoo messaging, the use of tablet devices, live polling during your panel session. We'll also present 2 short case studies where polling and messaging have been used well, and then rounding off with some tips and tricks before a Q&A session using the Meetoo meeting we have set up. So why use Meetoo? Turn your attendees into active participants, capture benchmark data, measure shifts in opinion based on the panel discussion, and give participants an easy way to confidently ask questions. Find out what is really important to your audience and create a dynamic 2-way conversation between your panel and participants. Okay, so let's look at our Meetoo Toolkit. Getting set up to use Meetoo at your meeting shouldn't give you a tech headache. All you need is right here. Presentation laptop with the Meetoo PowerPoint add-in, a laptop or iPad for moderator if you have someone doing this, iPads for chairperson and panel, and lastly, make sure Meetoo messaging is on and in moderated mode. I'd now like to hand over to Dermott to talk through how using participant messaging can really add to your session, as well as the benefits of giving your chairperson and panel tablet devices.
Thanks very much, Sophie. So, in order to get the most from your attendees, you should introduce and regularly encourage the messaging functionality. Attendees are then able to send in their questions the moment that they think of them, rather than waiting until a formal Q&A session that might be at the end of the day. If your attendees do have to wait, there are some dangers to that, so they may have forgotten the question that they wanted to ask. They may not get the opportunity to ask that question due to time restraints. Your attendees may wish to remain anonymous, or they could decide not to ask a question if they don't feel confident enough to speak in front of other attendees. So reassure your attendees that all questions will be looked at and addressed where possible, and that any that are not answered during the meeting will be responded to afterwards via another communication channel like email, intranet, or website. Then you look at why you might want to give your chairperson and panel members iPads or other tablet devices. So we actually listed the idea of giving iPads or tablets to the chair and panel in our toolkit for a couple of reasons. The main one though is simply so that your chair and panel have the ability to view those questions being submitted by your participants. There are other benefits that come with that ability depending on how your session is set up. So your chair can view a moderated list of questions and so effectively become the final moderator before putting them to their panel. Or your chairperson might be the moderator and filter all submitted questions ready for putting to the panel. In this way, your chair gets to put any questions that they deem relevant to the panel and ultimately have more control over the session. But importantly, where your panel members have a device, they have the opportunity to review questions and prepare their answers, which will likely result in them giving better and more fluid responses. So a bit of a case study here on where this has been achieved before. So this case study, you can see some details on the screen, but it was a recent pharmaceutical investigator meeting. And at this meeting, participants had been verbally encouraged to send in their questions for the final Q&A by the meeting host prior to a coffee break. And the coffee break was immediately before the Q&A session. Her encouragement was also backed up by a slide on the main screen. Now this worked really well, as actually some of the attendees started sending in questions during the coffee break, and they received quite a few more while people were re-entering the room after the break. The messaging mode was set to moderated, and there was a dedicated moderator sitting at the back of the room accessing the messaging dashboard via a laptop, and this made the whole moderation process a lot quicker and easier. He would identify good questions and then move them to the reviewed inbox in Meetoo, which was being accessed on the stage via iPads by the chair and all the members of the panel. Now, due to the nature of the meeting, many of the questions were long and quite detailed, and that can often be an issue when being submitted verbally from the floor. So the fact that they were being displayed digitally gave the chair and the panel the opportunity to read and then reread if necessary before responding. The chair here was the final point of moderation, and on occasion she actually moved questions out of the list because she didn't deem them good enough for the session. And where questions had been loosely repeated, the moderator was able to just send up one question to the iPads, but actually prefix the question with a ×3 or other indicator to let everybody know that those questions had been repeated. This then enabled the chairwoman to identify questions that were more popular and therefore get the panel to respond to them first. This session ran for about 45 minutes, but afterwards they still had quite a lot of questions unanswered. So the chair promised in a closing wrap-up that she and the panel would sit and have lunch together after the meeting and produce some responses to all of the unanswered questions, and that they'd be published back into the app messaging board. They also exported all the content from Meetoo and sent the messaging parts of the report to all of the attendees on an email. The panel session at this meeting scored really highly on the evaluation survey, and our customer was so pleased that they actually told us that they believe that the functionality of the messaging really added to that result. So now I'd like to hand back to Sophie after hopefully giving you some ideas there on messaging, and she'll talk about some live polling.
Thanks, Dermott. So the best way to create a more engaged and focused discussion between chair, panel and attendees is to include an interactive polling element. We would always encourage a poll at the beginning of a panel session to establish a baseline opinion. Capturing this in-the-moment data gives the panel members an insight into how attendees feel about the topics being discussed. It may also open or encourage further discussion on areas not previously identified. Doing this brings the audience into the discussion and will make them feel more valued as participants rather than simply attendees. It may be valuable to rerun the polls again at the end of the panel session and compare the results to measure any shift in opinion as a result of the panel's comments. If you're running a less formal panel session and want to empower the attendees, you can run a poll at the beginning which has a selection of topics to choose from. The panel then discuss the most popular responses. This creates a session that is most relevant to the attendees and will likely result in a more engaged audience. By making your attendees feel more involved, you are likely to see more positive feedback and evaluation scores for your panel session. Allow your panel members to poll the attendees. It is advantageous to have a provision to run ad hoc polls if required. During a session, a panel member may want to gain opinion on a theory by making use of a captive audience. Giving this opportunity can drive a really interactive and free-flowing session. So we've got a case study for you where polling has been used in a panel session, and as you can see on screen, this is for a sales kick-off event. So during this event, polling was used to focus the discussion of the panel by initially gauging the opinion of the audience on the best way to approach selling into a new market. Panel members then gave their opinions individually. After each panel member responded, the facilitator would present the same poll to the audience. However, this time the results would not be revealed. At the end of the session, a comparison slide was shown to display the shift in the audience's responses, making it easy for the facilitator to talk how opinions had changed based on the points of view presented by the 5 panellists. Based on the shift in opinion highlighted, the facilitator decided to ask an ad hoc poll to validate his summary, so he could create the question on the spot via his iPad and was able to get an immediate and accurate picture of whether the audience agreed or not. This was a great end to the session, and the chair mentioned afterwards how powerful the use of the in-the-moment polling within the session was to him. Okay, so just to recap, we are now going to run through a few tips and tricks for you to take away from today's session.
Okay, so some tips for messaging. Encourage your participants to send in their questions throughout your meeting in order to have a good stock ready for the panel Q&A. The chair and panel members might only see a reviewed inbox containing the questions chosen by the moderator if you have one. You may choose to encourage participants to prefix their questions with the initials of the panel member or presenter that they're directing questions at. The moderator, if you have one, can edit and prefix questions to help the chair direct them to specific panel members. And also that moderator could, if they wanted to, edit messages to indicate if a topic has come up a lot in the questions submitted. Again, this will assist the chairperson in running the session.
Okay, so looking at tips and tricks for polling. Run a poll at the beginning of your panel session to establish baseline opinions. Empower your attendees by allowing them to drive topics for discussion, and give your panel members the opportunity to poll the attendees. And rerun polls to compare any shifts in opinion, and don't forget ad hoc polls can be really powerful to creating a dynamic panel session. Well, that's the end of our session on using Meetoo during your panel sessions. We'd now like to take a few minutes to answer the questions you have submitted via Meetoo. Please continue to send in any more and we'll try to answer them all before we run out of time.
Okay, so we've had one from Dave Richards. This is great, thanks. Is there an option to hide the poll results until the end of the session rather than show them live? Yes, absolutely, Dave. So whether you're using the PowerPoint plugin or not, you can choose to hide poll results at the end of a vote. We'll actually be demonstrating that with a couple of feedback questions in a minute. But if you are using the PowerPoint add-in, you're able to hide those results initially and then use the Meetoo plugin analysis slides to actually reveal those results again at the end, and it makes it very easy because it's all embedded in your presentation. So one from Seb, which best practices to have attendees download the app? This is a really good point, and it's all about encouraging people. Generally, we advise our clients to send out emails ahead of their meeting, or even piggyback other communications that they're having to get people to download the app. With Meetoo, you can actually generate all the joining instructions via your dashboard, which is really useful. So very similar to GoToMeeting that we're using today. And then that gives people the opportunity to download the native app or indeed just join via the web app. And also what we've been doing today is actually we have this slide here which has our meeting ID along with the access details, but also if you noticed on all our other slides we had the web app URL link at the bottom of our slide so that anybody that missed the introduction would be able to join in with the Meetoo element afterwards. We've got another one, great session, really useful, thank you very much. I really liked seeing the Meetoo meeting ID on every slide. Okay, brilliant. That's very well timed, thank you. Okay, Another one, can I customise the app for the sponsor of the session and change the next sponsor? Yes, absolutely. So you'll see the branding that I've used today and with our info screen. That can all be changed dynamically, so anybody that was on this session really early will have noticed that Seb spotted a double space in our info screen, and I was able to update that instantly. So yes, you can change the theming colours and the info screen, and that includes the logo at the top and all the content just dynamically. So certainly something for sponsors. It is a great feature that for every session you can make your app look completely different for them. Can questions asked by the audience be shown on screens behind the panel session? Yes, absolutely. So there is a projector display that you can launch from your dashboard and just have that on a computer. So if you are running with main screens, you can have all those questions appearing. We're obviously using auto-publish today, so it's not being moderated, everything just appears. So if you had that in case up on the screen, all the new messages would just appear behind everybody. But also if you were using a moderator to pull up a shortlist, then the questions that they decided wanted to be put to the panel would then appear on that projector display. Are there any materials or resources about how to customise? Yes, absolutely. We're going to be putting a slide up just at the end with lots of our online resources. But the best place to go is help.meetoo.io. But like I say, we'll show a slide in a moment, and also I'll push that information back out to the app. We seem to have slowed up a little bit. So what we'll do, we'll leave this messaging open for a while afterwards. And anybody that has any more questions, they can send it in. We will respond to them all, as we promised earlier.
Okay, so just before we leave you to enjoy what's left of your day, please can you respond to our quick evaluation polls? So first one, would you consider using Meetoo during future panel sessions? Please vote now. Okay, great. We'll close that vote off and move on to the next one. So, has this webinar been a valuable use of your time? Thank you very much. And last question, would you be interested in other webinars like this? Yes or no? Please vote now. Fantastic. Thank you very much for responding to those. We hope this session has been useful, and what you've seen and heard will help you continue enjoying using Meetoo at your meetings. You can see we've listed a few places for online resources, and we will also push these out into the Meetoo meeting so you can take them away. Of course, if you think of any question you wish you'd asked in relation to the topics covered today, or would like to discuss other ways to use Meetoo, please get in touch with myself or Dermott directly. Of course, you can email the Meetoo team at hello@meetoo.io.
Just before we go, I just want to answer a quick question so we can do it verbally. How did you do that data capture thing? That's just a very simple PowerPoint animation of a text box that we set to build just after we closed the vote. So very simple.
Thanks, Dermott. Okay, so that's all from us. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you for our next customer success webinar, and enjoy the rest of your day.